Okay, here are the solutions to the classwork. I suggest that you try a problem, look at the solution, stop the video, go back and try another problem. So for this first one, we're asked to find the slope of the line through the pair of points and then indicate whether the line through the points rises, falls, is horizontal or vertical. Those are your four choices. So I'm going to label my values. I have x1 is 9, y1 is 8, x2 is -2, y2 is 6. The formula is y2 minus y1, rise over run. I have to, if I start with y2, I could do y1 minus y2, but then I'd have to do x1 minus x2. They have to be in the same order. And notice that x2 and y2 go together as a point. y1 and x1 go together as a point. So I'm going to take my values. And if you make mistakes in calculating slope, it's because you're not writing out enough work. It's the other thing I could suggest is to put these in parentheses. Because when you have negative numbers, you'll see it tends to get a little trickier. -2 minus 9. 6 minus 8 is -2. -2 minus 9 is -11. The slope for this one is 2/11. And it is a positive slope because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So it rises. All right, try number 2. Stop the video, try number 2, come back and look. Okay, so for number 2, again, x1, y1, x2, y2. I get 11 minus a -10. Be really careful when you're subtracting negatives. Put your negatives in parentheses all the time in these. So that's y2 minus y1. And then x2 minus x1. Now I have to follow good arithmetic. This is like 11 minus a -10 is the same as 11 plus 10. -6 minus a -11 returns subtraction into addition of the opposite. So it's going to be plus 11. That gives me 21. -6 plus 11, the signs are different, so I subtract. 11 minus 6 is 5. 11 was the larger number, and it was positive, so that's a positive 5. So my answer is positive 21/5. And this one also rises because the slope is positive. Okay, stop the video and come back to see number 3 after you've tried it. So number 3, x1, y1, and I could label this x2, y2 and the other one x1, y1. It doesn't make a difference. In the end, you get the same answer. 1 minus 7 over 8 minus, I see I have a -6, I'm going to put that in parentheses. 1 minus 7 is a -6. 8 plus 6, subtracting a -6 is 8 plus 6 is 14. I would reduce that fraction to be -3 over 7 because 6 and 14 both divide by 2. So this is -3/7, and this one falls because it has a negative slope. So rises goes like that, falls goes like that. Okay, stop the video, try number 4, come back. x1, y1, x2, y2, -2 minus 7 over -6. So try to be consistent putting my negative signs, minus a -6. So a -2 minus 7 is a -9. -9, -6 plus a 6. Oh, notice the x-coordinates are the same. If the x-coordinates of a point are the same, you graph -6, 7, and you graph -6, -2, you have a vertical line. We're going to see I get division by 0. You can't do division. You can't divide by 0. If 0 is on top and the -9 at the bottom, the answer would be 0. But if you can't do this, it means you have a vertical line. So the slope is undefined. You might have learned this as no slope in earlier algebra classes, but it's truly undefined is the right word. And this is a vertical line. And if you're not sure whether the line is vertical like that or horizontal, which goes like that, plot the points. And if the x values stay the same, the points are on top of each other, so it's vertical. Okay, stop the video and try number 5 and come back. Okay, number 5, x1, y1, x2, y2. I have -1 minus a -1, y2 minus y1. and I have a negative 6 minus a 5. So the top, I have a negative 1 minus itself. That's negative 1 plus 1. That's a 0. I get 0 over negative 11. There's no such thing as negative 0. When you get 0 divided by a number, the answer is 0. And that means it's a horizontal line. And the reason is if you plot these points, you will see the height of the points is the same. So if you have a coordinate plane and here's x is 5 and y is negative 1, and over here is x is negative 6 and x is negative 1, that line through those 2 points would be horizontal. Okay, the next set of questions changes it up a little bit. It gives you a graph, so try this one, and if you can't try it right away, watch the first part of the solution and then try it. Find the slope of the following lines or state that the slope is undefined. Well, this one's not undefined because it's not vertical. Now, these are difficult to see, I admit. It looks like this is the axis here. I'll draw that. And the y-axis is easier to see. I can tell that by the arrow, okay? So I need 2 points to find slope. I have a graph. There's an infinite number of points in the graph. Let's pick 2 convenient ones. By convenient, I mean it shows up, let me get a better color, on the graph. So that looks like that's at x is 6, and hopefully this is easier to see in your printed copy, and y is 3. So this is the point 6, 3. And I look at this line, and it's rising, so I know I should get a positive slope when I'm done. And the other point I might choose, well, often we choose intercepts, by the way, to do this. I didn't choose intercepts here, but it doesn't matter. It looks like 0, negative 3. Now, every point on the y-axis has an x-coordinate of 0. So this is x1, y1, x2, y2, negative 3 minus 3, that's not 0, be careful, over 0 minus 6 equals negative 6 over negative 6, which equals 1. Well, that kind of makes sense when I look at this line, because every time I go over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1 to get to the next point. So that is a 1. So you pick 2 points, that cross at nice grid lines, points on the line. I wouldn't pick the one I just did there, it has to be on the line. Identify the points with their coordinates, and then use your formula y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Okay, so try number 7. Stop the video and then come back. For number 7, I'm going to pick 2 points, and again, this here is my x-axis. Oh, it looks like I've got a point right here at 0, negative 5. Maybe another one up here crosses the grid line nicely at 1, 2, this is 3, 4. x1, y1. And it doesn't matter if I labeled them in a different order, the order of the subtraction on the top and bottom would change, so I would still get the same sign. I would still get the same answer. So I get negative 5 minus 4 on the top. That's y2 minus y1 over 0 minus 3. That's negative 9 over negative 3. I get a slope of a positive 3. Does positive make sense? Yeah, because this line is rising. And it's a little steeper than my last line. My last line was a 1. This is a higher value. The steeper the line is, the higher this number is. If it's steep but falling, it'll be a higher negative. It'll be like a negative 3 or negative 5. But this answer is a 3. Move on to problem 8. Stop the video and try it and come back and see. Again, choosing 2 points. Now I see this slope. I can already see that my answer should be negative because this is falling as you move from left. You always talk about moving from left to right. So this answer is going to end up being negative. Again, this axis, which is hard to see, it will be easier to see on tests, I promise, is there. Oh, and it looks like my line goes through the point 0, 0. So that's kind of a convenient one to pick. And it also goes through the point down here, which is, so that's 0, 0, 1, negative 4. You could pick 2 different points that are on this line, as long as they're on. You could have picked negative 1, 4 up here, for instance. And you will get the same answer if you do it correctly. So you can call this x1, y1, x2, y2. Negative 4 minus 0 over 1 minus 0 is going to give me negative 4. I get a negative slope, which is what I expected. It's a negative 4. All right, stop the video. Try the next one. Okay, this one is one of those kind of cases that feels special. This is horizontal. Now, if you can't remember, you say, oh, no, it's a special case. Is this no slope or zero slope? Well, you could walk on this line here. So it's going to be zero slope. It's flat. If you can walk on it, the slope is zero. It has a slope. If it's a wall, you can't walk on a wall. So that has the undefined slope. But just pick a couple points. I have the point 0, 3. And I have the point 3, 3. So this is x1, y1, x2, y2. I get 3 minus 3 over 3 minus 0, which gives me 0 over 3. If you try that in your calculator, you will get 0. You can, if the 0 is on top, it's okay. If the 0 is on the bottom, you're undefined. You can walk on a horizontal line. You can't walk. You can walk on a floor. You can't walk on a wall. So the floor has a slope of value 0. The wall, the vertical line, if I had a line going like this, that's a wall. It looks more like a wall. I can't walk on it, so that's an undefined slope. That might be a way to think of it. Stop the video. Try problem 10. All right, here we are at problem 10. This is my wall. This slope, I could just write down undefined by looking at it. That would be fine. But if you can't remember that, one of the things you can do, and this is my x-axis again here because of that arrow, it looks like this is the point 4, 2, and I have the point 4, 5 up here that I've labeled. Okay, x1, y1. So if the x's are the same, x is 4, that's actually the equation of a line, x equals 4. We'll get to that in the next section. I do 2 minus 5 over 4 minus 4. I get a negative 3 divided by 0. This, you can't do that. You can't divide by 0. So that's undefined. You can't walk on a vertical line. You can't get enough traction. Well, however you can remember that, that's one way to remember it. So you could have just written 0 for 9 and undefined for 10. That would have been fine. All right, stop the video and try number 11. They change it up a little bit. Okay, number 11, we're talking are lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither. If two lines are parallel, they have the same slope. If two lines are perpendicular, you multiply the slopes, the slope of one times the slope of the other, and you always get a negative 1. If neither of these things happen, if the slopes aren't the same and they don't multiply to a negative 1, your lines are neither parallel or perpendicular. And remember, perpendicular means they meet at right angles. Like this would be a right angle of these two lines here. It would meet at a right angle. So the slopes of lines that look like this, one is rising, one is falling. That's why when you multiply them together, you get a negative value. But if you get a negative 1, they're actually perpendicular. So you need to find the slope of both lines. So I'll find the slope of line 1 is, this is x2, y2, I wrote y1, 4 minus 2 over 7 minus a negative 5 equals 2 over 12, or 1/6. For line 2, that's line 1. For line 2, I'm kind of all over the place here. y2 is 5, y1 is 4. You get 5 minus 4 over 9 minus 3. 1/6. Oh, look, they're the same. So these two lines are parallel. All right, stop the video and move on. All right, I think you've tried problem 12. I'm going to do the slope of line 1. And that's going to be negative 14. Now, I got to be careful. I'm not writing out my work as carefully. I'm more prone to mistakes. Over 18. So I did the y's over the x's. I have to check for that. 18 minus 4. Negative 14 over 14. I'm not recommending that you... So the slope there is a negative 1. For the second slope, I do a 1 minus a negative 6. And make sure I put that in parentheses. Over a negative 2 minus a negative 9. 1 minus a negative 6 is 1 plus 6 is a 7. Negative 2 plus 9 is also a 7. I get a positive 1. So in problem 11, once I saw the slopes are the same, I didn't have to check if they're perpendicular because if they're the same, they're parallel, they're not perpendicular. But now I have to do m1 times m2, and I see I get a 1 times a negative 1, and that indeed is a negative 1, so these are perpendicular. Number 13, you try that and come back. So you get the slope of line 1, 26 minus 8, over negative 27 minus a negative 7, so that'll be a plus 7. 26 minus 8, you can check the arithmetic. Do the arithmetic out slower than this if you'd like on your own. And 18, 27, negative 27 plus a 7 will be a negative 20. And this reduces to, you don't necessarily have to reduce it to negative 9/10. For line 2, I get negative 1 minus a negative 10 over 5 minus a negative 5. This becomes negative 1 plus 10, which is a 9 over a 10. Now, let me double check this. Negative 1 minus negative 10. The difference between these two values is 9. Negative 1 minus a negative 10 will be negative 1 plus 10 will be a positive 9. 5 minus a negative 5 will be a positive 10. So I started to the right and went to the left. That means it's a positive difference. So I get positive 9/10 and negative 9/10. That doesn't multiply to negative 1. It multiplies to negative 81 over 100. And they're not the same. 9/10 is not the same as negative 9/10. This is neither parallel nor perpendicular. All right, stop the video, read problem 14, and come back. This is an application. Okay, remember, slope is a measure of pitch, steepness. Roller coaster track has dimensions shown in the diagram. Find the grade. That's another way to say slope. When they talk about the grade of a road, you might have seen a sign that says, steep grade, truck 6%. That means the slope is 6 over 100, going downhill probably, if you see that sign. Round to the nearest whole percent. So you're just going to find the slope and write it as a percent. So this is the rise. This is the run. The most basic definition of slope is rise over run. So I get 9.46 divided by 22. And whatever number that comes out to be for slope, I'll round that to the nearest percent. And let me find my calculator.